This time about simple designs. Of course, again in studio, the designs in life are not simple, especially if you think about design biz or info or net. Of course, .com or .org is not simple. CEU Pro are also not simple. There are some forms of generic designs like Name, Mobi, Net, or Pro, even x86 or TEL. To understand different forms of more health design when it comes to network are more like center dental or fit health. Not easy to understand healthcare and the design, especially with different forms of the banks and bankers' explanations of the clinics. To understand care form designs, but also to understand the full design of Taoism is not simple, especially if you see the design of hospital together with the recipes. Of course, Taoism recipes are much different than those from healthcare hospitals, but to understand different forms of therapy is also important. To understand people, but also to understand different forms of health is also important in science, especially in Delta forums. To understand memorial of hospitals is also important sometimes, but also to understand that law is very weak when it comes to different forms of healthcare. To understand different forms of designs together with modeling, but also the therapy for some people that want to be models but have under 100 photos. It's not simple. Those models should actually have some therapy all over the year, but it's not easy to understand because there are some sort of action or in bargains of modeling if they do not have minimums of 100 photos. Not necessarily the photos of them, but those could be the photos of their logos and designs or their style. It's only important they own some photos, minimum of 100 photos, to become members in our simple forms of organization. To understand simple bargains under 5 photos for beautiful people, it's not easy. Because it's not easy to think about apartments for them. With 100 plus photos, of course, it's possible to lease much more, but also to build better forms, designs of lands, estate, and different forms of actions. To understand agency is not easy, but also how to rent different forms of properties and apartments for photo shootings and for saloons all over the USA, Europe, and of course, United Kingdom. To understand villas, it's not easy because top models have millions of photos and they live in villas. But you should not compare to them. To understand different forms of clubs in healthcare is also important, but also fishing, football, and golf. Of course, it's not easy to be the ninja in modeling world or Taoist. But to understand different forms of fitness is also important when it comes to soccer and different forms of teams in sport. Professionals in tennis, but also yoga professionals, include different forms of mentor for different forms of designs. And of course, each supermodel should actually understand that. From more simple point of view, every human in hospital is a patient, or in modeling world a model, even if you are 95 or 100 years old. To understand different forms and how much cash people pay, or how much credit they take to build their apartment is not easy. To build exchange of value in life and financial world is not easy, but this world is very poor when it comes to me connected with others. Different forms of loans for community are not easy, especially in banking interests, but also the director decisions together with legal forums. It is unsure how to present better credit cards, but also the design for them, especially if you have your own designs in modeling credit world. To understand different money forms, but also designs is not easy. To understand building loans, but also legal forms, together with construction, sometimes even illegal if there is too much law. For some people in Europe and UK, but also in America, it's not easy to understand all those energy contractors, but also to build better ethics. Especially bankers sometimes do not understand that sharing knowledge is the vital function of the world. To understand engineers in some form, but also in banking, it's not easy. Usually, bankers actually corrupt different forms of industries, and that's the problem of every city in this world. Of course, to understand different forms of parts, but also productions together with the environment, it's not easy. There are also the solar, different forms of plants, also solar lamps, but also different solar devices for lock and unlock, different forms of service in healthcare sectors to repair bones and bodies, sometimes not easy in healthcare sector, but also to use the tools like knowledge. Likewise, to understand that most of people, like 95% in this life, actually like a lot of cooking but also kitchens designs. Those are some sort of bars or some sort of network beer coffee chains. To understand different forms of designs together with kitchen is also not easy, especially if you mention home on the web. That, of course, is an extremely big illusion, like some other eco designs together with different forms of wine. This one is one of the biggest illusions. Of course, also the pizza and vodka, especially when it comes to network, are illusions. But to understand different forms of company, it's not easy because you can actually use different forms of the site like cheap business, but it can also end with associate company, the coupons discount express, the gift global, the guru holdings, live marketing, or even markets media partners or sell service. You can even end your site with different end with supply stop or trading vision or even different forms of reviews or promos. If you would like to go in different forms of CD, of course, you can also understand that you can actually use different forms of navigations together with yourself. To understand simple forms of different forms designs is very, very difficult. But also to understand that designs are extremely complex, like design world, stars, or space. It's not easy to understand different forms of gallery, but also jewelry in this world together with imagery. Fashion design, but also different forms of clothing together with modeling, it's not easy. And some supermodels even use the diamonds on themselves. To understand furniture in this life, it's not easy if you are without photos. But with some photos, you'll get some graphics and some light to your luxury design. The luxury photography, it's not easy because it become really, really important to some point and with some part of life, but also healing people. To understand the gallery of every individual is not easy, especially in combination with different forms of agency working, contracting. There are different forms of simple shows that people show on the web, but of course you should actually deny and delete different forms of the shoes design, which are usually a scam. To understand different forms of simple face, but also builders in that area, it's not easy. There are a lot of different forms of engine, together with florists, but also to understand the law professionals. The lawyer, together with book, is not easy because the lawyer represents the author. To understand also different forms of accountants, it's not easy around the world, but also to see colors. You can actually build the site and with word black, gold, pink, blue, green, or red. That's extremely difficult. Of course, you can also build a simple site that ends with words community, faith, or let navy, or social, even tax, family, or other forms of poverty in this world. You can even build a site to build site together with end with church to understand camps, but also the farms, some sort of F farm, simple forms together with country. It's not easy to understand different forms of art, but also sharing discounts together with knowledge around the world. To understand that your site can actually end with extreme words like fish, hoard, or pet. And you'll see how much danger is in those designs. Of course, you can also understand that 90% of adults do not understand network. Those are working like some sort of a band in this community, and if you are going to bet on adults, probably you are going to lose entire company. To understand different forms of the sites that adults might see are like casinos or bingo. And if you think from that point, you are going to understand there is no fun in adultship or poverty. To understand different forms of man, it's also not easy, but also to understand different forms of rocks that too today in different forms of toys on the web. Humans are not simple, and you can build your own site, your own F farm, or simple, the farming groups. Of course, your site can also build less work like life or more meaningful holdings, gratis, international, the markets, partners, services, supply, global, express, discount, or coupons if you are actually building sometime for people under 45. You can actually also build the site company or CAM or associate if you are building the site for the bank or something similar. To understand ethics in web, it's not easy. And if you'll share zero, probably you also get the zero on the web. But if you share a lot, probably a lot of wallets open. But also some sort of simple forms of ethics, together with different forms of constructions, together with websites. The more ethics you try to achieve, probably you should share slightly more. And the more you share, the more you can get. That's not always correct, but it is in 90% of cases. So if you are thinking to become more fortunate, probably you should not look for more money, but for more ethics in your life. It is also important to understand that diverse service is not as much important as you think. You can be focused on simple things, and if you do simple things very, very well, that's actually enough.